Thank you for having me. I'm going to try and not be repetitive as much as I can, but bear with me because I'm going to cut some things out. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our research, then some of the barriers that we find that our female members say is preventing them from growing or setting up, with some ideas about what Labour or the government could do to improve the situation for women entrepreneurs. And I'm just going to finish up with a little bit on self-employment and universal credit, and I'm going to keep that separate, although obviously self-employment and business ownership are interchangeable, and I will talk about them as if they're interchangeable things. So just very briefly, for anyone who doesn't know what the Federation of Small Businesses are, we are the UK's leading business group. We represent the 5.5 million small businesses and the self-employed. We've also done a series of research about women's entrepreneurship, and the latest one actually has some really positive things in it, and I wanted to start off with some positive stats, because I think too often we spend all the time when we're talking about women's entrepreneurship talking about the gaps, instead of also celebrating the amazing women who we have seen set up hugely successful businesses, who are employing thousands of staff, and we should recognise that. So our last bit of research, as I said, has some really positive stats in it. I'm going to read these because I can never remember them, there's lots of detail in it. We found that women-owned businesses now contribute 105 billion to the UK economy. That's a growth of nearly 40% over 3 years. And that's £36,000 per person in the UK that is created by those businesses. And if we take women-owned and women-led businesses, so those are not that the women own 51% of the business, but they control 51% of the business, they are managing it, they contribute 221 billion to the UK economy, and that represents 13.3% of economic output. But it's not just the economic contribution, and I totally understand that all sounds technical and it's a lot of detail that doesn't make loads of sense. But I think what is really important is that we talk about women's entrepreneurship and employment. To be more specific, there are now 2.9 million people employed in women-owned businesses. That's 11% of private sector employment. And even more impressively, if we add in together women-owned and women-led businesses, that now accounts for 23.85% of private sector employment. And that is hugely positive, and it should be recognised. But there is still further that we can go. As Seema has already pointed out, women are far less likely to start a business, and as Liz has mentioned, just 19% of SME employers are women-owned. That just simply isn't good enough. And there is some recent research that says 2.7 million women would like to start a business, but have decided not to because they feel like there are barriers preventing them from doing so. So what are the problems and what are the things that we think are preventing them from doing so? One of the biggest ones is access to finance. Now, although there is no specific research that says that women are discriminated against when they go to banks, they aren't going and asking for loans at the same rate as men. One of the things that we found really interesting in our own research was that when we talked to our members about it, the women said that they felt far more responsible for their family finances than they did their partner. They felt like they were responsible for making sure the mortgage was paid and that their childcare was covered, and separately to that, their partner was allowed to do extra things with their finances, but they were responsible for keeping it. And so they felt like they had less opportunity to take that risk. We also looked at kind of alternative forms of finance, and actually women are far less likely to use those. They're far more likely to use debt finance, which is how you think of traditional bank loans. And one of the reasons is that women have less awareness, so they don't know about alternative forms of finance in the same way. But also, we found that some of the women we spoke to felt like angel investment wasn't for them, and that when they went into pitch, they weren't getting the same opportunities. So kind of talking about the business pitch, angel investors often come from investment banking, and in many ways you can think that that is quite a masculine and male culture, and actually when our members were going into that, they felt like it just wasn't fitting with them. So one of the things that we would really like to see is to see an encouragement of more female angel investors. We think that will make a huge difference, but also about building things like crowdfunding networks and looking at how you build that alternative finance market within the UK would really improve things for women entrepreneurs. next thing is childcare and caring responsibilities. We all know that women still take on the vast bulk of caring responsibility, and as we have an ageing population, that's going to have an even greater effect, because women are not only going to be responsible for taking the bulk of the responsibility of care for childcare, but they will also be taking the bulk of the responsibility for caring for elderly parents. Now, self-employment and business ownership can represent a hugely positive choice for women who want to manage their home life and caring responsibilities, but it is not easy. It is not a simple thing. So when we talk to our members, they say the biggest positive about self-employment, and the reason they went into it, was because it allowed them to balance their work and their home life. But once they're in business, they find the biggest constraint to growth, and the biggest worry they have is about balancing their work and their home life. So although it's positive that they get to make those choices, so they can say that they always want to do the school run at 3 p.m. and they block that out in their calendar, that work still has to be done. So once they put the kids to bed, they find they're working at midnight, doing the things that they would have been doing at 3 p.m. And it's not an easy choice that says once you've done a certain thing, then you don't have to do the other. The other thing that we find is that women are far less likely to know someone who owns a business. And actually, we all need to see people who look like us, who sound like us, who feel like us, doing a certain thing for us to feel like that's the right thing. And because we don't have so many role models who are women business owners, but also because women are far less likely to know someone in business, that is a real barrier. So, in terms of kind of policy solutions and things that we think the government could do, first of all is that Labour, sorry, I get so used to saying, things that Labour could take on. One is, as I mentioned, I think the alternative finance, building the alternative finance market would make a huge difference, but also raising awareness, particularly amongst female entrepreneurs, and providing advice and guidance about how they go in and pitch. Lots of people just do not feel like they have the skills and ability to pitch successfully. And actually, if you're not providing that training, we're not going to see a breakthrough in terms of venture capital coming to women-owned firms. We think there is more that could be done about managing caring responsibility. In particular, we think when women start up a business, when women choose to have a child, if they are self-employed or they are owning a business, they do not get the same access to maternity pay, and the maternity allowance is not at the same level as statutory maternity pay. We think looking at that and looking at shared parental leave would enable people to feel like they were getting more support as business owners if they were starting a family. We also think it's hugely important to encourage more role models and to encourage more mentoring and networking available to women-owned businesses. And also, as a general, I think at FSB we often find in small business policy that it's a bit piecemeal. Every single department or every single kind of particular policy area is thinking about something, but there isn't a coordinating point. And actually having a coordinated strategy about how you improve women's entrepreneurship is hugely important, and that would be the biggest thing, is about providing that overarching strategy. And then just very briefly, sorry, I realised that sounded like I was finishing, I'm going to talk about self-employment and universal credit, because I think that's the biggest thing that Labour could do to change how women are able to set up and start a business. Women are most likely to move into self-employment after they've taken a career break, and most of those career breaks are because they've decided to have children, and they've taken their maternity leave and they don't want to go back to their job, or they've taken a longer break and they're waiting until their children go back to school. And for them, self-employment can be a really positive choice. It isn't always. There is a mixture between that. There are people who feel that it's their only choice, but for lots of them it's a positive choice. But they are having to manage their childcare, and for many of them, they're not particularly well off, and they are reliant on the benefit system to be able to help them set up and start a business. All research says that businesses, on average, take 3 years to reach profit. But within the universal credit, if you are self-employed, after the first year, you're expected to earn the minimum wage every week over a year, and you do not get a top-up and any additional support on top of that if you don't need it. that is stopping businesses at a year that could go on to be hugely successful businesses who would contribute to the economy, who would be employing people, who would be doing great things, and actually it's a real mistake and a real loss that we're losing out on that. And so I personally think changes to universal credit, particularly around the minimum income floor, would be one of the biggest things that you could do to support women's